Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unpack complex stories to give you the real picture of what's happening and arm you with the insights you need to be truly well-informed. Today, we're plunging into, well, probably the most intense competitive arena in the tech world right now, the relentless battle for dominance in artificial intelligence. You've definitely heard about the AI talent wars, but what you might not know is how one specific tech giant, Meta, is leading what can only be described as an unprecedented acquisition strategy to really cement its place at the top of the AI landscape in 2025. It's not just a fierce competition for AI supremacy. Frankly, Meta is going all in.
Yeah, absolutely all in. And the urgency here is palpable. You can really feel it. To truly grasp the gravity of Meta's moves, you have to understand the sheer scale of the stakes. This isn't merely about, incremental growth or getting a slight edge. We're talking about positioning for a market that analysts project will be over $1 trillion by 2030.
$1 trillion.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a massive pie, right? And every major player wants the biggest slice they can get. What's particularly fueling Meta's aggressive push right now is their own recent, very direct success. They reported a whopping 16% year-over-year profit increase in Q1, and a significant portion of that was directly attributable to their existing AI tools.
So they're seeing real money from AI already.
Exactly. That kind of tangible return on investment just validates their strategy and, frankly, underscores their need to accelerate. So our deep dive today is all about breaking down Meta's exact, sometimes surprising moves from their attempts to acquire entire companies to, well, literally poaching top-tier talent, and what this all means for the future of AI and the broader tech industry.
Okay, so let's unpack this. To really grasp the scale of what's happening here, we need to frame this as what many are calling a new AI arms race. It feels like that, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
And if you look at the projections and the investment flows, 2025 is highlighted as the absolute peak competition year for AI talent acquisition. It's happening right now, in real time, and the pace is just, well, it's breathtaking.
Absolutely breathtaking. And that trillion-dollar-plus market projection for AI by 2030, it isn't just some big number floating out there. It translates directly into immense pressure on these tech companies, Google, Microsoft, Meta, OpenAI, all of them, to secure top-tier talent and cutting-edge capabilities now.
Right. It's about the future.
It really is.
Yeah.
This isn't just about gaining a competitive advantage today. It's about defining the very future of technology, shaping how we interact with information, how businesses operate, maybe even how society functions in the coming decades. If you don't have the best minds, the best models, and crucially, the best data, you risk being completely left behind in what is, I think, undeniably a foundational shift in technology, like a land grab, for the infrastructure of tomorrow.
And Meta, very clearly, does not want to be left behind. You can see it in their actions. Their strategy has been incredibly bold, starting with attempts to acquire entire, pretty well-established companies. First up, they held serious acquisition talks with Perplexity AI. Now, this isn't just some small startup you've never heard of, right?
Not at all.
Perplexity was valued at approximately $14 billion. That's billion with a B. And it's a powerhouse, apparently processing an astounding 30 million search queries daily.
Huge volume.
It also boasted some very notable backers, people like Jeff Bezos and Matt Friedman, which really speaks to its significance in that burgeoning AI search space. But ultimately, those talks with Meta, despite the clear interest and probably a lot of effort, they failed.
They did. Which then brings us to an even more massive acquisition attempt. Safe Superintelligence. Meta actually put in an incredibly aggressive bid to acquire this company. The figure being reported is an eye-watering $32 billion.
$32 billion. Good grief.
Yeah. I mean, this would have instantly added significant, really cutting-edge AI capabilities to their portfolio. It could have let them leapfrog years of internal development, potentially. But again, despite that astronomical offer, the deal fell through.
Okay, so 2 big swings, 2 misses on the acquisition front.
Right. But what's truly fascinating here, and maybe a non-obvious takeaway for you listening, is Meta's willingness to even entertain spending these astronomical sums, even when the deals don't actually close. It signals their absolute unwavering commitment to dominating this space.
Yeah, it shows they're serious.
It really does. It demonstrates they are ready to invest capital on a scale we haven't really seen before to achieve their AI ambitions. The failure of these 2 major acquisition attempts didn't seem to deter Meta at all. It simply forced them to pivot their strategy, but definitely not their resolve. And it also highlights a crucial tension, I think. While Meta clearly has the capital, these prime targets aren't just selling to the highest bidder. They're often seeking strategic alignment. or maybe wanting to retain control, which makes pure talent acquisition perhaps even more critical and complex.
And this is where Meta truly showed its agility, I think. Because after those two massive acquisition attempts fell through, they didn't just, lick their wounds. They pivoted, quite remarkably, to scale AI. This wasn't an outright purchase, but perhaps an even savvier strategic play. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Very savvy.
It was a hugely successful move involving a massive investment, somewhere between $14.3 and $14.8 billion for a 49% stake. This deal actually brought Scale's post-deal valuation up to an impressive $29 billion.
Yeah, boosting Scale's value significantly, too.
And the deal structure itself was interesting, an equity arrangement. So Meta bought a significant ownership stake, becoming a major shareholder. But crucially, it was apparently designed to preserve Scale's operational independence, allowing them to keep innovating without direct Meta oversight. Kind of a win-win that gave Meta a strategic foothold without the maybe headaches of a full acquisition.
Exactly. And that operational independence is absolutely key for Scale, letting them continue to serve other clients, at least initially. But what Meta gets from Scale AI is perhaps even more crucial for their own ambitions. First, as you mentioned, they gain privileged data access.
The data.
Meta now has direct access to vast amounts of labeled data. And for those listening, that's essentially raw information, like images, text, audio, that's been meticulously tagged and categorized, often by humans or other AI.
Yeah.
It's the foundational, high-quality training material that you need to feed and refine these really advanced AI models.
So it's like the feedstock for their AI.
Precisely. The feedstock, the fuel. This directly addresses the scaling challenges they've faced with their own internal projects, like their powerful large language models known as Behemoth and Llama. These are the models designed to rival those from OpenAI and Google. Second, and perhaps even more strategically important in the long run, this provides them with a future-proofed supply. The advanced payment arrangement reportedly secures Meta's data needs for the long haul, positioning them perfectly for sustained long-term AI development capabilities.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't just about acquiring a piece of a company, it's about securing the fundamental building blocks of AI itself. High-quality, vast data sets are the absolute lifeblood for powerful AI, and Meta just secured a massive continuous supply pipeline for that lifeblood.
Okay, so if high-quality, vast data sets are the fuel, the lifeblood, then the engineers and researchers are the engines, right? They make it all work.
You could say that, yeah.
And Meta's next move, after securing this critical data supply with Scale AI, was to go straight for the human capital, the engines. Because after those high-profile company acquisition attempts didn't quite pan out, Meta made a really significant shift to direct talent acquisition, literally poaching industry heavyweights. First, and this is pretty bold, after that multi-billion-dollar investment in Scale AI, they then went and hired Alexander Wang, who was Scale's CEO.
Right, the CEO of the company they just invested billions in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a massive move, not just for his technical skills, which are obviously considerable. Wang will now apparently lead Meta's crucial superintelligence research initiative, which aims to develop AI far surpassing human intelligence, a long-term, very high-stakes endeavor that sits right at the frontier of AI research.
Yeah.
He brings not only his technical expertise, but also huge industry credibility directly into Meta's fold.
And it wasn't just Wang, which is also telling. Remember the failed acquisition attempt of Safe Superintelligence for $32 billion. Well, Meta then turned around and successfully recruited its CEO, Daniel Gross, to join Meta directly. This just perfectly demonstrates Meta's talent at any cost approach. If they can't acquire the company, fine, they'll acquire the brilliant mind behind it.
Whatever it takes.
Seems like it. And if that wasn't enough signal, they also brought in Nat Friedman, the former CEO of GitHub. Friedman brings deep AI ecosystem expertise and, crucially, a network of industry connections that create enormous value in this kind of competitive environment.
So they're getting leaders, not just engineers.
Exactly, top strategic minds. And this raises a really important question for the industry, and maybe for us.
Yeah.
What's the true value of these specific individuals? Because the compensation packages Meta is reportedly offering are just staggering.
I heard they were big.
Big is an understatement. Their aggressive compensation packages apparently exceed $10 million annually for top AI talent. That significantly outpaces standard industry benchmarks, even at the highest levels.
$10 million a year.
Yeah. This isn't just a generous raise. It's a profound statement about how vital these specific individuals are seen to be for Meta's future. For some of these key figures, they're not just employees. They're almost being treated like strategic assets whose intellectual capital is deemed almost priceless in this race.
Okay, so with Meta making these incredibly aggressive moves, trying to buy companies, investing billions, poaching top CEOs, you can bet other tech giants aren't just sitting by idly, right?
Not a chance.
We're seeing defensive and offensive counter moves across the board now. Take OpenAI, for instance. Meta reportedly offered over $100 million in total packages to try and poach key talent from them.
$100 million to lure individual.
Astronomical sums, targeted at individuals. But interestingly, reports suggest most of those approaches were actually rebuffed. It shows a surprising level of loyalty to OpenAI, perhaps, despite the massive financial incentives being waved around.
That is interesting.
It suggests that maybe for some top AI minds, the mission and the culture at pioneering companies like OpenAI might currently outweigh even those stratospheric financial offers. It's kind of a fascinating counter-narrative to Meta's pure talent at any cost approach, hinting that maybe this battle for AI dominance is more multifaceted than just money.
That's a crucial point about culture, definitely. And it highlights that money isn't the only motivator, even at these levels. But while some talent stayed put at OpenAI, the landscape for data access, specifically relating to scale AI, is shifting dramatically because of Meta's move. Companies like Google, xAI, and potentially other competitors have now voiced significant data access concerns.
Because Meta has this privileged access now.
Exactly. As a direct response to Meta's privileged access through the Scale AI deal, these other companies have reportedly paused or even terminated their own contracts with Scale. Their fear is pretty clear. Meta's direct privileged pipeline to that high-quality labeled data creates what they see as an unfair competitive disadvantage, one that could fundamentally alter the playing field for developing next-generation AI.
So they're cutting off their own access to scale data to avoid
Right.
what? Helping Meta indirectly.
Or perhaps signaling their displeasure, or maybe looking for alternative data partners. It's complex. But what's truly fascinating here is how one company's single strategic move, like Meta's huge investment in Scale AI, can just ripple through the entire industry ecosystem. It's forcing others to immediately adapt their own strategies, reevaluate their partnerships, or risk falling seriously behind in the fundamental race for AI development.
Wow.
Yeah, this isn't just about one company's fear of competition. It's really about the very oxygen of AI development, that high-quality training data. If one major player can effectively corner the market or even just get significantly preferential access to the best data, it could potentially stifle competition and innovation across the entire industry. You could end up creating a kind of data-rich and data-poor divide that really shapes who controls the future of AI.
So bringing this all together, what does all this mean for us, for you listening, and for the future of AI? What we've seen from Meta is a clear, multi-pronged strategy, isn't it? A relentless drive for market dominance, focusing intensely on acquiring both talent and data, making these huge strategic investments like Scale AI, and all of this seems to be leading towards significant industry consolidation, or at least concentration of power. Their unprecedented spending just signals incredibly serious long-term AI ambitions. They're definitely not playing small here. They're playing to win the entire game.
Precisely. The race for superintelligence or even just highly advanced AI isn't just a marketing buzzword. It is actively reshaping tech industry dynamics in real time, right before our eyes. Meta's moves, whether it's attempting acquisitions of key companies, making successful strategic investments like the one in Scale AI, or their clear talent at any cost to poaching industry leaders, they are forcing competitors to react and react quickly. Those who don't adapt, or perhaps simply can't match this level of investment and agility, they genuinely risk being left behind as the foundational elements of AI development. The data, the talent, the compute become increasingly concentrated. This isn't just about building slightly better apps or features anymore. It feels like it's about controlling the very infrastructure of future intelligence.
And this leaves us with, I think, a really provocative thought for you to consider long after this deep dive ends. Given Meta's aggressive talent at any cost strategy and the resulting highly concentrated control over essential data pipelines and the very top experts in the field, how might this intensely competitive environment shape the ethical development and, maybe more importantly, the accessibility of future AI breakthroughs? Does this kind of hyper-competition accelerate innovation for everyone? Or does it primarily benefit a select few giant corporations, potentially creating new power dynamics and maybe even new inequalities in the coming AI landscape? Something to definitely chew on.